how to play Tecmo Super Bowl online using Nestopia. I've got, here's my Nestopia folder on my desktop, and this right here is the actual application file. I've got the Unlimited Sprites 2 version. After you download everything, I hear a lot of people say you gotta delete this save folder. That can cause some problems. I've never had issues with it since my I might have had it when I started 10 years ago, 9 years ago, but I haven't really run into problems with that. But what you want to do, go ahead and fire up your Nestopia, and a couple things to check under your options. For your paths, you want to make sure this treat as read only is checked off. And you want to make sure here where it says under save states use internal compression, you want that unchecked. It should look like this. You can choose a couple things here, like where you want your screenshots to be saved. I don't really use Nestopia to do screenshots. And then once you have that, if you're playing a game, for example, let's say I were to play HSTLD ROM. I was going to play a league. Whoops. So I want to go and make sure I get my, get my handy ROMs. Oh, guess I'm not logged in. Get my ROMs. Then I have my ROMs in a folder. I just keep my ROMs folder over here. HSTLD. Some of these other random ones. TAD, new league we're starting up. And then I have my WTF ones per year, which I will do with HSTL or HSTLD. And so after you have your ROM saved, let's say I was going to play Johnny V. I'm playing my week 1. Okay, so what I would do, the way I have it, you don't have to do it this way, but if you want to record your NSV before you do any connection, and after you have Nestopia all set up, oh yeah, a couple other things you might want to set up. Make sure your input works. And for your input, like dead zone, I hear variability in terms of which works best. I chose 21 because Ezekiel Elliott. I had 22 for Emmitt Smith for the longest time. Somewhere under 30 sounds good. A lot of times what can happen here is your pad 1 and your pad 2 get mixed up when you've been playing offline and online, or you switching between player 1 and player 2. So if you're connected with somebody and it's not working, try this. Go to Machine, Input, Port 1, and make sure it says pad 1. It might say pad 2. That's another thing you can troubleshoot. But before you go to connect with somebody, and after you've got all those other things set, you're going to have to go to File and Movie Player, choose File, and then Browse where you want to save your movie folder. So mine goes to the last place Nestopia menued me to because I uploaded a state in some other league. So I'm going to go to Nestopia, and I've made a videos NSVs files. I think you automatically have a videos file when you get down the Nestopia download. I just added NSVs to the title. It doesn't matter. And then just to keep mine organized, to keep them all in here, like I would make one for HSTLD, and I can put season 1 in there. And my nomenclature, the way I use it is I start with I'll just use the season 1. I start with the league name, and then that's usually I have the same team. If it's a league like an OG ROM league, I would put what team I am. So I put like Chargers verse. Okay, but since this is not an OG ROM league, I am automatically the Chargers in HSTL. I just put verse, and then I put who I'm playing. Like for example, my first game would be Johnny V, and then the mascot. So in this case, Johnny V Bengals. And that's just a way for me to be able to search people if I have their vids later on. I literally record every NSV. The only time I don't is if I forget, which is not very often because I do it every time as a habit. But once my routine gets broken, sometimes I'll forget. So get the name saved in place, okay? and you hit OK, and then you go to your connect, and you got to make sure that the right ROM is loaded in here. Couple things to worry about too. I've seen this happen. If you get, like I have in the past, it's not close yet, but if you have so many ROMs in here that when you add a new one, the space is already used, uh, you have to check and make sure your ROM is actually in there when you add it, or it won't be available to you when you try to connect. So I'll go to add, and I want to add the, say, HSDL D1. Throw that in there. It's there. The sucky part about this, I don't like to delete them all at the same time, because there's certain ones like tap meter and the salary cap ones I like to use more than once and not have to find again. And I'm kind of a lame-o, so I literally remove them one at a time. Um, and then once you have new game, or do what did I click on? Connect. I went connect. Oh yeah, launch. Once you've added it, so I still have mine in there. Launch. The real key here is if you are the one that's hosting, you want to make sure this port matches with where you've enabled your port to forward as a host. But if you're the one connecting to somebody else, this really doesn't matter. Your nickname you can change, but it won't stick unless you run this as admin from the beginning. And if you're the one that is hosting, you just click on new game here. If you're the one that's being hosted, they will give you their information, and you type that here, and there cannot be any spaces. Sometimes, I haven't seen that in a long time, but my old laptop, it always would add a space. I think with AIM, when we sent AIM messages, a space would get added on there, and you had to make sure that space was deleted. And then you hit connect. Let me see if I can get Stolly to connect here. Who did I play last night? I played Cubs. So I just used my same old one. I should have it quickly away. Oh. So it's being a douche. Because some things I think of with gives connection problems. If you go to host or connect somebody and it doesn't work and you get out, as a general rule, I will always go and restart Nestopia. A couple things. Being on the West Coast, I think we're a little more privy to connection lag and issues of that nature. And input delay is a real thing, especially in my view, if you have it held open for such a long time and the other person hasn't connected. For some reason, I feel like that's led to a lot of input delay. If you want to look at some examples of my NSV titles, like, you know, OGTL week 1, who I was and who they were. This is one we had a disconnect, so I had to restart. WTF ones, who I'm playing. TAD, new league. So you get the idea. This part's tedious, and if I had connections issues with somebody and they're waiting long for me, this is usually what takes the longest time. Typing this up again. A lot of times, if I've already got the connection set with them, I'll remember to go here and connect and save this so I can just copy it back in. So it's week 1. I might have forgot to put that the first time around. Week 1 versus Johnny v. Bengals. Okay. Make sure my ROM is in there. Other issues you'll notice if you're having controller issues. When you connect, certain things of setting wise, when you connect with somebody, they don't stick if you just change them before connecting. So for example, if I just fixed my input so that my controller worked, but I didn't close Nestopia and redo it and close it again so the settings kept, I will have to redo it every time when I try to connect with somebody. So to try and be clear about that, if you have a controller issue, you configured your input, it didn't work in between, like when you try to play somebody, close Nestopia completely, open it up, set your controls, so configure them, and then close Nestopia again before trying to connect with somebody. That way those settings will keep. Um, I'm going new game here. I'm streaming this right now. And this isn't just for the PNW. This is for a lot of HSTL guys. Um, uh, Stall Talk is my 8 bits of glory. All right, so if you're going to be the player one, you change the game like I did. I'm sure he has tap meter. And then let me show you real quick about condition checker. All right, so we'll go Green Bay versus Dallas, I'm sure. Man versus man. Yes, Green Bay versus Dallas. So it's honestly at this point that I would go after the coin toss when it gets to the actual kickoff screen. Um, this is the point where I record, and to record, you go to File, Movie Player, Record, and it'll record um, your video from there on. If you're going to do condition checker, the way that works is, and I usually set this up on a stream before I connect with somebody just to save the time or any issues are here. So I go to quick save state. I'm going to save a state. So this is going to be Dallas and Green Bay and average. I use the save state 1 slot. And then in my Nestopia, I've got the condition checker version 3. It's the one I use. So I'm going to run that. It looks like this, and just know the paths of where your folders are. So mine, I don't know why I have all those extra blank folders, but mine's in Nestopia on the desktop. This is under ROMs in Nestopia, and this is the tap meter. And then you go to your save file. So home takes me right to the desktop, Nestopia, states folder, and this is tap meter NS1, and there we go. A lot of times you might have a little white, full white screen. That could be an issue if you have internal compression turned on or off. Another thing that can help when you are done with your game is when the game is over, it's still in the blue screen, you go to Movie Player and choose Stop. That doesn't always guarantee it, but it does help. And it doesn't guarantee that your video won't work if you don't do that. Most of the time it does. It's just every little step helps when you're trying to keep those NSVs. At the end of the game, when it's on the blue screen that shows the score and some of the stats, leave it there. Make sure your guy can get, if you won, get your quick save state. So I usually will use the 8 slot for that for a win, and anything else for a loss, just because I'm me. But everybody has their own. I'm sure most people do like 1 or 2. I use 3 generally for my condition checker. It's just a weird routine I've gotten. I believe that's it. If there's any questions, we'll throw this out on YouTube and we can answer questions on under that, and maybe in Discord